So, so let's leave that for a moment and just go on to you had an hour, you found out, and an hour later, a heart was available. And what was your name for this heart? What's your nickname for your heart?
Rocket,
Rocket.
Rocket. I thought it was a boy, but usually women don't get male hearts
Uh-huh.
because they're big. And so I got a female heart, and I didn't know that, so I named it Rocky first, so it became Rocket.
Gotcha, gotcha. How much of that were you aware of at the time that you were getting a heart and it was coming from a woman, or were you told any of that? Do you remember?
Um, Probably, but I don't remember a lot of it. I remember when I went into surgery, and it's like a dream for me. I remember them all going, because I got surgery the next day. They said, "We got a heart, we're going to do the surgery the next day." And it was supposed to be a 16-hour surgery, 10 to 16 hours. And um, I remember my son and my sister saying, "It's gonna be okay. They're gonna take you. It's everything's gonna be great." And I was just kind of like, "Okay." And they must have joked me up so much. So I was just like, whatever. And I came out of the surgery, and again, I was very drugged, but I remember just thinking, okay, they were like, "You did great. The surgery went so well, and it only was 8 hours. It wasn't 16." And I was like, I remember being just like, "Ugh." And I
Go me.
felt like when I woke, right?
No, go me.
Yeah. And then it took when I became like more conscious, that's when I think everything just set in like, okay, I have a new heart, and that's it's weird. It's weird, and it's frightening. And um I was doing well, and every day they'd come in and take like another tube out of me, and
Um,
that became another thing in itself because I wanted so badly to eat again and to drink. And you could go stir crazy in the ICU because and they told me stories about people that jumped out of their bed and drank water from the toilet and things like that. I didn't have the ability to walk. So because I had been in the bed so long, I couldn't walk anymore. So I tried to drag myself, but I couldn't move. Like, so I was just trying to grab like a lobster like this. And it was horrible because I was also having like delusions and stuff even after. Um, but then they started to pull some of my meds, so I was just more up, and I could talk. And Sophia was there for a lot of it, and she came in every day. Every day before, she's decorating my room in the ICU. She decorated it for Christmas, and that kind of thing really was so helpful for me because I was alone, for some of the time, and I hated that. Like, I wanted somebody to be with me constantly because
hmm.
it was so scary. And Sophia was there. She'd come over from work. She worked on the other side where I was in Duke. So that I will never forget.
And
So
I just
I
want to point out
it's
we're talking about Sophia Smith, who is another Hodgkin survivor. She's a social worker, works at Duke. Um, she's actually on our board at Hodgkin's International. So we've been, you know, friends and acquaintances for quite some time. But yeah, she was instrumental in not only, I know, jumping in there for you, but also keeping the rest of the world um, in tune with what was happening for you. And I must say, as a silent observer, it was miraculous. I mean, those of us who have had heart problems have always wondered if we would ever be eligible for a heart transplant if it came to that, whether we'd make it through. So hearing your story, and initially as told through Sophia, was I keep using the word inspiring, but I can't think of a better one. It was really inspiring.
Yeah, I knew she was that's on the communication department with all of you. So that was very helpful too, and Dr. Effinger as well.
So it
So
was a rough,
uh,
rough time initially, and I'm sure, all the anti-rejection meds and things that they were looking for must have made life very difficult. How long were you in after the heart transplant? How long did it take you to finally get out of the hospital and get home again?
It was amazing because after I got it, they put me in what's called the step down unit. So I
Yeah.
wasn't in the ICU anymore. And
Hmm.
that floor went from, being in the Four Seasons to like being in like the Ramada Inn. It was like the room went from being like this big majestic room to like this little nut.
Yeah.
Oh man.
So
I
true.
went from
So true.
5 star to two, maybe 1.5. So um it took them like not that long. I mean, I had to get another surgery because when they took out the tracheotomy finally, which for me was awful. Like I had a hole and I would it's that sickens me, that kind of stuff. It makes me
Yeah.
want to faint.
Yeah.
So they would have to clean that out, and I swear, I was like, I'm gonna pass out, and just the idea of that was so horrible, and they had to do it like several times a day to get. Just talking about it is
Oh,
horrible for me.
I, I hear you. Yeah.
Terrible. And I couldn't speak. So they were trying to get my vocal cords back working, and they had this little thing that you put in the hole and then you could talk, but
Right.
it wasn't working for me. It would just come out like a whisper.
Yeah.
And so they were like, oh, her vocal cord is paralyzed. So here I go back into surgery because they said, do you want to get the surgery to fix it? And I'm like, well, the hole is there. So yeah. So I went in there and they did that. And then it was like, oh God, I have to drag on for another how many days. I remember counting because I didn't sleep at all. I would
Mhm.
just watch the clock and watch TV. It was horrendous. And I remember it was like another 4 days before they would test. They were going to give me the swallow test. And it was brutal waiting. I was just watching the clock. I'm like, okay, day two, because I was only able to eat applesauce because everything else they gave me was pureed. Like, try to
Uh,
have a steak puree. It's so bad. I was like, I can't eat this. I don't know anybody. Maybe my dog, but I don't think Belle would want it either. So I think
doesn't
that
sound great.
from that time, so let's go back. So November 6th, I had the heart attack. December 9th, I got the new heart. December 21st, I went home. They
Wow.
got me in time for Christmas.
Wow.
And I was so excited until I got home and realized what this anti-rejection medication was actually going to do. Because I had the medications there, the pain meds that kept me feeling comfortable.
Mm.
And at home, I went from having oxycodone to Tylenol.
Yeah. Yeah.
You cannot drop someone who had a heart transplant from oxycodone for 1 week into Tylenol.
Yeah.
I'm like, can I get another prescription? Uh, and they were like, no. They're like, you just have to do the Tylenol. And I was in so much pain. And I felt so sick. And I had started taking the prednisone because I remember the doctor talking about that. And my memory was, oh my God, I don't want steroids. I never wanted steroids. And he was like, well, you're going to be on the prednisone for like 7 months. I'm like, is my face going to get like big? And they were like, yeah, probably, but it'll go down. And I was like, oh my God. I just, at that point, I wanted to just punch the clock. I mean, I was so done. I remember just struggling so bad afterwards after the first week that, I looked at my Xanax bottle and I was like, how many of those do I have to take to
Mm.
just go on and not do this anymore? Because my parents were also having a hard time. They were struggling with taking care of me. And mm, I was struggling with them. Like I was like, this is not living. If I'm gonna live like this, I don't want to live anymore. Because the anti-rejection drugs at that point were so strong that I couldn't get up. I was just shaking and I felt so sick. I was vomiting, and then I just would lay on the bed and kind of pant like and my dad, because he gets nervous, when he gets nervous, he yells, was like, you gotta get up, you gotta get up. And I was just like, ugh, I was like a puppet. And they called and they were like, she was like, my transplant coordinator was not great. And she ended up having a fight with my father. And, so they were like, just take her to the emergency room because all her tests are fine and we don't know what's wrong with her. And I didn't want to go to the emergency room. I didn't want to go back. And so I laid in bed, and every morning, one of the other PTs or OTs would come to see me, and that really helped
Mhm.
because I wouldn't have gotten out of bed. And, I looked at myself in the mirror and I was starting to see a different person, not me. And I didn't know who that person was. And I remember when I woke up at home the first time and I had the new heart, and I thought, well, it's not me anymore. It's me and this other person. And I feel like Frankenstein. I'm talking and walking, but it's because of Rockette and not me. And so I think that Rockette was fighting back too, because she was, the heart holds memories. And um, she had to work for me now. So it's kind of like, I don't know where I am. And I'm like, I don't know where I am because there's the soul there, but the heart is part of the soul. So now her heart was meshing with my soul. And I could feel her. I could feel her. And um, we were both angry,
Uh-huh.
and it was really tough for that first month. I was like, and it took a big blowout with my parents to have everything change in my life with them. And it was a miracle because I never really got along with my mother. So I took a real blowout with her and me to get her to say, I'm going to go see a doctor. And, that was
Gotta
a
be
miracle.
the whole thing, Jessica, as you were talking about it from your perspective, and certainly from your parents' perspective. What a helpless situation to be in. They can't really help you the way they probably wanted to. They couldn't possibly. You can't help yourself. Things are sort of out of your control, and so they had been for you know 2 months. So everybody must be feeling like, what can I do? There's not enough. Whatever I do is not going to be enough. And I can't fix this. And that's hard. That's hard for people who love you, want to take care of you. It's hard for you to sit there and know that that's what's happening. There's really,
Yeah.
this is a matter of time and patience, and Rockette saying, you know, let's get angry and do something together. But yeah, I think it's fascinating to hear you talk about that feeling of um, having another heart and soul in you, not just a heart, but the spirit of somebody else being a part of you. There are very few of us who will ever know what that feels like. And that's a powerful thing. I want to make sure I hate skipping along, but I want to make sure we spend a little time talking about not just your early recovery, but the next uh, thing that I remember was that you're participating in the Paralympics in Paris, not 9 months later, which is mind-boggling in and of
7
itself. What was it?
7
Seven,
months.
seven. Okay, yeah. So tell me how we can sort of skip over some of the interim parts, but tell me how you got. I know Justine had a role in it, but where you actually got to the point where you said, "I think I can do this," because I it sounds miraculous.
I think that I share like the mindset of a lot of survivors, and we are a different breed. So when we're presented with something like that's like a challenge, most of us are going to go for it if we can. And my body was saying it couldn't, but my brain and Rockette were saying it could. Because my body, I had the shakes really badly from the tacrolimus, which is one of the anti-rejection drugs. and it's also a drug that can cause lymphoma. So that drug really frightens me, and it also gives you horrible reaction. So I was shaking a lot, and I felt like it, like Parkinson's. Like it was embarrassing too because I couldn't hold things. So Justine said to me, "Do you think, I have like this sponsorship with this group, and they're doing a dash to Paris, and they want you to lead us,
Mhm.
and you'll run a mile." And she's like, "Or you can go in the car. You don't have to run." And that, again, here comes that, alpha jet. And I'm like, I
Scared
don't
to
want
get
to go in the
far.
car.
I'm
I'm
scared to
gonna, I'm
stay
gonna,
in.
I'm gonna do this for all the Hodgkin survivors and me. And Rocket. Like I'm gonna do it. And at that point, I hadn't run at all. I hadn't even done like a fast walk. So I went and got a membership over at the Y, and they had a track. And so I put on my pods, and every day if I could, because there were some days I could not get out of bed. I was sleeping like all day. But when I could, I pushed myself to get up, and I would go, and I had these great shoes that made my neuropathy feel like it wasn't there because I can't feel my feet anymore. And I started slow. Heel ball toe. And then I picked up my knees, and I was like, well, I can do it. I can do a small run. It looked pathetic, but I could do it. And I put on the Rocky soundtrack.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
I just started to jog around that track, and I would jog for 15 minutes, and it was hellish, but I'd do it. And I felt much better, and the shakes would stop when I would do it. So that was important to me. And so I did that for, I think I had 3 weeks. And then I flew over there. But at that point, I was on prednisone withdrawal. So I was vomiting intermittently. Like all of a sudden, out of nowhere, I had to like go run and throw up. And so my parents were really worried about me going to this and getting on a plane. So Sophia stepped in again, and she was like, I will go with you.
Mm.
And she flew with me all the way to Paris. And it was really helpful because I think on the plane, um, I was worried. I was worried that maybe I'd fall. Like my legs
Sure.
weren't that stable. And so that was a wonderful, wonderful thing that she did. And
I just
I
and I
got there.
take it your doctors gave you the thumbs up to do it, and
Yeah, they did for me. It was awesome because they were really cool about a lot of stuff, and I they kind of knew at this point who I was because I also went head to head with my transplant coordinator. I mean, this is kind of what happens with me, and then if we get through that point, then we're going to be good.
that
So she was really cool after that, and she was much more receptive to what I was saying because it had to get to the point where I just told her, you got to stop with this emergency room. I'm not going to the emergency room. If you can't handle my case, give it to somebody else because I'm going to be a hard case. I'm going to write all the time, and I'm going to ask questions, and I'm going to tell you everything, and you're going to get annoyed. But I mean, if you can't handle
very
it,
honest, Jess. You're very honest in a very humble way. That's admirable. I'm going to
well,
be a
she
pain in the ass.
went
Yeah.
off, and I'm like, if you can't handle it, don't stick your hand in the fire because I am the fire. So,
Tell
but
me
she
before,
came back.
okay, I just want to ask before I forget. Tell us a little bit about Justine's program that she was involved with and how because
So
I think that was
it
an
was a
important one.
Yeah, so it was a gentleman whose daughter was in the um, Paralympics who had gotten I'm not sure what the disease is, where it's in your spine, and it actually they had to amputate her legs, so she had two prosthetic legs, and was she had overall rated like gold medal in for Italy, and so his name is Massimo. And
Mm.
so he had heard about the transplant because just seeing bikes with them. And she does sponsorships for Trek bicycles. And that's Massimo had asked her, we're doing this dash to Paris on the bicycles and running, and all these people who have, one leg or, one arm. And we would really like Jessica to come down as somebody who, lost something too. She lost her heart and run, and Justine, proposed it to me, said, they'll pay for your flight and they'll get you the hotel, and pay for your, not your food, but pay for everything else. And I was like, wow, that would be awesome. And she's like, and you get to go to France. And I was like, I never thought about going to France, but when I was there, I was just blown away. Like, it was amazing.
What an
So I
experience.
was like, yes,
Yeah.
yes. Like, even before I knew I could do it, I was like, yes. And I told my parents, "I'll go," and they were like,
Why am I not surprised? So in
"Ah."
that was July, July, August.
Yeah, I want to think. Oh, it was July. It
Yeah.
was July.
So
It
you
was
had
July.
a fantastic experience. Do you remember the name of the organization that is not important? I just want to make sure we give them a shout out, and we can do that.
It was the Dash to Paris. Like,
Okay.
that was their logo, and so, and Massimo had headed it. I have like one of the hats, but I don't have any other information about it. I
That's
just
okay.
know that
No,
it
I
was.
just want to make sure we gave them a little shout
Yeah,
there.
absolutely.
So
And my sister, Matera, and
right,
she's
Christine Matera.
she's- yeah,
And thank God for her for many reasons, right? I mean,
yeah, I
so
wouldn't be.
tell us what between July and November, when you hit your first year anniversary, how were those months for you? Were you increased, your energy was getting better, you were off the prednisone, or did that still take a while?
I was off the prednisone, and I'm trying to think about the grid here. So I think that we're wrong. I think that I ran the Dash to Paris more close to when I went back to work, because I went back to work
Oh,
September 9th, I believe, and I went to Paris, so it was the end of August.
August,
So I got the prednisone in July. So at that time, my face had started to go down, but it would flare up and then go down. And they told me it's going to take about 9 months for it to go down fully. And um, I was in the withdrawal phase of it. So I was getting sick a lot, which made me worried. And the doctor thought, maybe we'll put you back on some prednisone. I was like, I'm going to go through the withdrawal. So and then I was really tired a lot. Like, just,
sure.
it would be like this exhaustion would come over me and I would have to lay down. So I was really worried about going back to work. So when I went to, and I work at Duke, I work as a physical therapy aide there in the clinic at Duke Douglas Street. And when I went back, the doctor who assessed me said, you can take 10 minutes every hour on the hour to take a break. And if you need other breaks, you let me know and we'll write it in. So they were really helpful with that. But I got back, and I mean, I got there the first day and I just was like, I had used all of my savings because I didn't get paid disability when I was sick. So I had barely anything left in my savings account. And it was really frightening because um, there were people that helped me, but they were like, look, we can't help you for long. So I was in Duke the first day and I just was like, I can't do this. I don't know how I'm going to do this. And there were two other aides and they were like busy going about. I felt like I was running in slow motion into like a wax paper when I was trying to push through and I couldn't, and I was like, I don't know how I'm going to do this. And then the second day I got up and I was miserable, and I got dressed and I went to work and it was a little bit easier.
Oh,
And then it was a little bit easier.
yeah.
And I'm thinking I have to keep going, because if I don't know how I'm going to have to move out of my house because I don't have any money anymore. So um,
So yeah,
I
what?
think
Go ahead.
persevere because
I hear you. We hadn't talked about this, and I have to say I haven't really thought even to ask you, but you're referring to the other side effects that go with long-term survivorship and something as traumatic as a heart transplant, and that's the financial, emotional, all of that, which I mean, we may be sort of struck by your story, but there's parts of that that are difficult to think about and to deal with on a regular basis and are equally as scary. You know, you've got to be able to work to stay healthy and work to pay for your health care, and that's all, you know, not the easiest thing to do. And I think we forget to even think about those things unless we're in the middle of it. It's hard.
Yeah, it is hard. I mean, I go along now and like every day I have to watch like my wallet and there are certain things that I mean I feel that the company that I was working for that I had the heart attack are negligible for. Um, but that's something that's an aside from this. So I have to live every day, and it's a different kind of life in many ways. Like
Mm.
I'm more handicapped than I was before. You know, I
Yeah,
can't feel my finger, and you know, I can't feel my feet, and that's hard on me. There are days when I want to punch the wall, and
absolutely.
then there are days where you know I'm religious and I feel very strongly about my God, and I also feel strongly about just letting yourself go. I don't think of it as meditation anymore because Raquel says no, we don't do it that way. We just sit silence, and it's a nice silence because I have her with me,
Yeah.
so I really am not
I was gonna say, I
alone
love that
now.
you listen to her. I think it's all it's
She's
fantastic.
hardcore. I feel like she's hardcore. Like in her life, I could imagine her like shooting with me at the range and like broad. I just feel like she's such a fire too inside of me. She's fierce, and um, she she will. If I do something that she knows isn't good for me, I can feel my body start to, you know, not
Her
feel
too.
well.
Yeah.
Yeah. And,
Well, I
there,
know we're up on an hour and a half now, and that was or an hour and 20. That was the fastest hour and 20 minutes I've ever spent. Um, and I think we could spend another hour easily. So we may have to do something like this again. But in the interest of time, and we're probably going to try to break this up so that you know, people have a chance to watch it in full, and they may not have that big a chunk of time. But I just wanted to thank you for doing this, for to thank you for speaking with me. Thank you for telling your story. And thank you for giving so much hope to Hodgkin survivors. This is one of those rare moments when we all sit around and go, "Wow, you know, maybe that could be me." Um, and your grace and your your energy is so clear. Both of those things I think are inspirational in and of themselves. So I thank you, Jess. Thank you so much for doing this. Any last minute
well,
thing you want to add before we stop? I want to give you the last.
um, I just want everybody that's in our like groups to know that they can reach out to me and they have. And if anybody needs any support in that way, I am always here. And I'm so happy that so many have reached out that are going through hard issues. But even if they have questions, I'm, you know, open to that too. So
Thank you.
that's
We wish you all the best and send you lots of love. Okay?
you too.
Bye, Jess. Take care.